want to talk too much about things.
Deborah Tannen, author of the bestseller You Just Don't Understand, helps demystify talk between the sexes.
Many women feel that the relationship is working so long as you can keep talking about it. And many men feel the relationship isn't working if you have to keep working it over.
Join us for She Said, He Said with Deborah Tannen.
It's Where You Belong, Wednesday night at 9:15.
Funding for local broadcast of the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by a grant from the Intel Foundation. Intel Corporation, the creator of advanced microcomputer chips and systems, has brought the power of microcomputer technology to millions worldwide.
Good evening, I'm Charlene Hunter-Gault in New York.
And I'm Jim Lehrer in Washington. After our summary of the news this Tuesday, we look at the results of today's presidential primaries with David Gergen and Mark Shields. Elizabeth Brackett talks with a group of voters in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Two economists interpret new economic indicator numbers, and Judy Woodruff interviews the UN official in charge of watching Iraq.
Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the MacNeil Lehrer NewsHour is provided by AT&T and by PepsiCo. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
This was another big day in the 1992 race for president. There were primaries in Maryland, Georgia, and Colorado, caucuses in Minnesota, Utah, Washington State, and Idaho. President Bush won the Georgia race over challenger Pat Buchanan. Here are the results as of now. The president with 61%, Buchanan 39%. That's with 52% of the vote in. Mr. Bush also is headed for victory in Maryland, and here are those results. The president with 71 to Buchanan's 29. Only 10% of that vote has been counted. In a statement this evening, President Bush welcomed his victories in Georgia and Maryland. He also pledged to work to gain the support of frustrated voters who turned to Buchanan. On the Democratic side, Bill Clinton won in Georgia. It was his first primary victory of the campaign. Those results, Clinton with 63%, followed by Paul Tsongas with 18, Jerry Brown 8, Bob Kerrey 5, Tom Harkin 2. That's with 52% of the vote in. The networks projected a win for Paul Tsongas in Maryland, with Clinton second. Here are those results. With 11% of the vote in, Tsongas 41% to Clinton's 31, Jerry Brown 9, Kerry 5, Harkin 5. Polls have just closed in Colorado. We will bring you those results as they come in, and we will have more on the campaign results right after the news summary. Charlene?
There were signs today that the nation's economy may be emerging from recession. After 2 months of declines, the government's index of leading indicators turned around in January to post its sharpest gain in more than a year. The index signals the course of the economy over the next 6 to 9 months. In a separate report, the government said new home sales also turned around in January, soaring 12.9%. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan today gave this cautious assessment about a recovery. He spoke on Capitol Hill.
The performance of the economy clearly has been disappointing. The recovery in business activity since last spring has been anemic, job losses have continued to mount, and confidence has sunk to depressed levels. As we look ahead, there are a few hopeful signs, but at this stage, they are quite tentative.
The Senate Finance Committee today approved a Democratic tax bill that would raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans. The plan also includes business and investment tax cuts and a $300 per child tax break for families with incomes below $70,000 a year. President Bush said this morning he opposed any plan to increase taxes. He was also asked whether raising taxes last year was the biggest mistake of his presidency.
Well, I don't know about the biggest, but yes, I'm very disappointed with Congress. I thought this one compromise, and it was a compromise, would result in no more tax increases. I thought it would result in total control of domestic discretionary spending. And now we see Congress talking about raising taxes again. And some in Congress are talking about trying to break down the spending caps. And so I'm disappointed, and given all of that, yes, a mistake.
Later, in a speech to the National Association of Evangelicals in Rosemont, Illinois, Mr. Bush said he would veto a bill aimed at reinstating abortion rights if the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. A bill known as the Freedom of Choice Act has been introduced in Congress. Mr. Bush had this to say about it.
It would impose on all 50 states an unprecedented regime of abortion on demand, going well beyond even Roe versus Wade. This is not right, and it will not become law as long as I am President of the United States of America.
Mr. Bush also announced his first formal summit with Russian President Boris Yeltsin. He said Yeltsin would come to Washington in June for 2 days of talks on nuclear and military issues and what he called joint efforts in support of reform in Russia. Former Soviet troops halted their withdrawal from a disputed region in Azerbaijan today. They did so after they were attacked by Armenian militants. It came amid reports of a massacre in the region, which is called Nagorno-Karabakh. We have a worldwide television news report narrated by Vera Frankel. A word of caution, some of the pictures in it are graphic.
Exactly what happened at Khojaly is far from clear. Armenia says it shelled the ethnic Azeri town within the enclave because it harbored 2 rocket launchers. The Azeris have been mourning what they claim happened next. Machine gun fire cutting down villagers as they fled to escape the barrage. The Armenians dispute the allegations of a slaughter. They insist mostly bandits and few civilians were there. But reports of the fighting indicate that the bloodiest ethnic conflict in the former Soviet Union has left no place safe or secure. Survivors were taken by helicopter to a hospital at Agdam. The feud between mainly Christian Armenians and Muslim Azeris over Nagorno-Karabakh has even splintered into attacks on former Soviet troops trying to withdraw from the enclave.
Those former Soviet troops began their withdrawal last week for their own safety. They are the final buffer between the enclave's rival factions. The Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a statement today saying President Bush's veto yesterday of a bill attaching conditions to China's trade status was sensible. The bill would have tied progress on human rights, among other things, to a renewal of most favored nation status for China.
Secretary of State Baker got a grilling from members of Congress today over U.S. financial contributions to United Nations peacekeeping efforts. The Bush administration has requested a total of $700 million over 2 years to cover the U.S. share of peacekeeping in Cambodia, El Salvador, and Yugoslavia. Congressman Joe Early, a Massachusetts Democrat, said that was too much at a time of tight budgets and domestic spending cuts.
The system isn't working. The American people are upset, and we're not paying any attention to them. They don't want to spend, they don't want to increase sevenfold, $700 million from $100 million peacekeeping force.
Mr. Early, due to the change in world conditions, there's going to be some increase in peacekeeping expenditures, but there are decreases, and you know there are decreases, in military expenditures. Either we address the national security interests of the United States or we don't. And, you know, maybe what you're suggesting is we simply withdraw. There's a lot of candidates who've campaigned on that kind of an argument in the past, and they've been singularly unsuccessful because I don't think the American people want America to withdraw from its leadership role around the world.
United Nations mediation efforts produced a ceasefire agreement today in the East African nation of Somalia. Leaders of the country's 2 rival factions signed the accord in the capital, Mogadishu. At least 5,000 people have been killed since fighting broke out there last November. 9 previous ceasefires have failed. A UN envoy urged the faction leaders to make this one stick.
And that's it for the news summary tonight. Now it's on to Gergen and Shields. Voter voices in Mississippi, some good economic news, and the United Nations ban on Iraq. This was presidential primary or caucus day in 7 states. The polls have closed in Georgia, Maryland, and Colorado. President Bush took Georgia and Maryland against Pat Buchanan. Here are the Georgia results with 61% of the vote in. The president has 61%, Buchanan 39%. The Maryland results on the Republican side, the president was 71 to Buchanan's 29. That's with only 10% of the vote in. The networks have projected another victory for the president in Colorado, where the polls closed just about 10 minutes ago. Turning to the Democratic race, Bill Clinton has won Georgia. Here are those results. With 62% of the vote in, Clinton 63%, Tsongas is 18, Brown 8, Kerry 5, Harkin 2. Television networks have projected a win for Paul Tsongas in Maryland. Here are those. That's with 11% of the vote in. Tsongas has 41 to Clinton's 31. Brown was third with 9. Then come Kerry and Harkin with 5 each. In Colorado, the networks report a 3-way race, very close, between and among Jerry Brown, Paul Tsongas, and Bill Clinton. That race is too close to call at this moment. We will provide updated totals later in the program. Gergen and Shields are here now for some analysis of what has happened thus far. David Gergen is editor-at-large of U.S. News and World Report. He's in Houston tonight. Mark Shields is a syndicated columnist, and he is in Washington tonight. Okay, going in this thing tonight, there were expectations, or where the bar was for everyone. Let's go through it, gentlemen, if we can. Bill Clinton had to win. He not only had to win, he had to win big in Georgia. Did he win big enough?
Oh, he won big. I mean, big win. No question about it. Anytime you get 62% is projected, 60%, and the rest of the field gets 40, it's a big win.
David, you agree? Did he do what he had to do?
He sailed over the bar, Jim, with about 10 points to spare.
Okay. Paul Tsongas, David, in Maryland, the projected he won. He's got about 49% of the vote.
Well, I think he's going to win by about
41%, I'm sorry, projected vote, excuse me.
It's a very solid win for Tsongas, Jim. I think he cleared the bar as well. He was leading by about 6 or 7 points in the polls going in to the final, so I think it's a very solid win for him. Outside is native New England.
And that was the test, was it not, Mark? He had to prove that he could win outside of his area?
Had to get out of New England, people didn't say George Bush. He says George Bush, and people in Maryland and Baltimore and Annapolis and Rockville understood him well enough to give him 2 out of 5 votes. It was a good victory.
Yeah. David, in Colorado, as I just reported, we don't have the polls have just closed. We have projected results from the networks, and they say it's very close. Brown, Tsongas, and Clinton. Does that say anything, or is it too early to say much about that?
Well, you know, it's been very volatile in Colorado. 4 or 5 weeks ago, before Bill Clinton had some of his personal troubles and allegations, he was strong out there, was pretty far ahead. Then Tsongas moved ahead. And then these attacks on Tsongas and nuclear power, I think really took a poll. And Jerry Brown has been streaking upwards. He's become the wild card in this race.
You agree? Brown is a wild card that has to be reckoned with in some way?
He sure does. I mean, he ran well in Maine in caucuses where they measure intensity of support on the same issue. But a primary is a bigger turnout. It's a larger political universe where just the intensity of zeal is not usually enough to carry the day. So I mean, if Jerry Brown's in a 3-way tie right now, or that approaching that, then he's showing late strength.
Yeah. What about Harkin and Kerry?
It's a long look between good news. I mean, it's been since Iowa for Tom Harkin when he won in his home state just before New Hampshire, 8 days before New Hampshire, and that was the 10th of February. We're now into March, and there's no good news for him. Bob Kerry, a week ago Tuesday, he was king of the hill, having won big in South Dakota, and there's no good news there tonight.
David, let's assume that things finish tonight the way they look like they're going to finish. Clinton wins in Georgia. Tsongas wins in Maryland. It's very close in Colorado. Is there a, quote, front runner among the Democrats as a result of tonight, going into Super Tuesday a week from tonight?
2 obvious front runners now, Jim, I think. And interestingly enough, Bill Clinton, who's, I think, very shrewd with his media strategy, has already come out tonight and made it very clear that his main opponent is Paul Tsongas. They're going to go head-on-head through Super Tuesday. I think Clinton is setting him up a little bit on that because obviously Clinton will do well there. Although, as Mark has pointed out on other occasions, Tsongas may be very competitive in a state like Florida this next Tuesday. But then I really think they head into the Midwest, into Illinois and Michigan. And at the moment, Clinton has some real strength in Illinois.
Yeah. But Tsongas now has to lower incredibly expectations throughout the South, doesn't he? And say, okay, sure, he's Clinton's a Southerner, let him have it.
We're in the home court and try and go in and steal a win in Florida. I mean, try and beat him in Florida if in fact he can. The other thing that's shaping up, Jim, based upon the returns tonight and as well from New Hampshire, is that the profile of the Paul Tsongas voter is that of a higher income, higher education voter. Now, if you're a Paul Tsongas supporter, you'd say he's the thinking man's candidate. If you're not a Paul Tsongas supporter, you'd say that's the Chablis and Brie crowd, and they'll drive on their Volvos and probably vote Republican on Election Day. Bill Clinton, by contrast, has kind of put together what had been historically the base of the Democratic Party. Working class, both great support among black voters in Georgia today and among blue-collar whites. And they'll be saying, well, you know, that's interesting, but they're going to vote Democratic anyway, would say the Tsongas people. So it's almost a little bit of armed camps. We're going to the mattresses within the Democratic primary right now.
David, the big test for Clinton, above and beyond everything else, was simply, had he put behind him the draft and the woman issue, has he done it as a result of tonight?
In Georgia, Jim, he certainly